Welcome to the high and low fives of Glenn Burke. My name is Cesar Love. I'm the author of this book, Baseball and Astrological Sightline. And let's get started. So the high and low fives of Glenn Burke. Who is Glenn Burke? Well, he was the inventor of the high five. That was his main contribution to culture. He's also baseball's first openly gay player. He was also the most fun guy on the bus. I'm going to play a clip. This is Dusty Baker, who's still in baseball.
I can't keep up with them now, but they do the boom, boom, the booty, and then the something, 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 and then it's like, how do you guys keep up with all this stuff? I go all over the country. People ask me, hey, man, did you invent the high five? And I was like, no, I didn't invent the high five. All I did was respond to Glenn. That's all I did.
It's the last weekend of the 1977 season, and the Dodgers have already clinched the playoffs, but there's still a lot of drama because Ron Cey, Dusty Baker, Steve Garvey, and Reggie Smith have a chance to become the first home run quartet in baseball history, 30 home runs. Everybody's joined the party except for Baker. He's sitting on 29. He doesn't hit it Friday, he doesn't hit it Saturday. Finally on Sunday, it's the 6th inning. And on the on-deck circle was Glenn Burke, the excited rookie. And the way the legend goes, that Glenn put his arm high in the air and Dusty wasn't sure what to do, so he slapped it.
He wound up like way back here. He didn't just do it like up here. He was like, if you see pictures of him, he's like going way back.
I know I wrote about it that day. It was such a moment. It was the energy of it. It was just this explosion of emotion. It was something just unique.
The way he used to tell the story of that first high five with Dusty Baker wasn't necessarily that he had innovated something so much as that he was so overwhelmed with joy and pride in what Dusty Baker had just done that the high five came out of him, that Dusty had brought it out of him.
Back then, just remember, individualism wasn't that big of a deal in baseball. So it was one of those things where, hey, you're sort of jumping out of the box a little. And so how cool is that? We originated this handshake.
I think it just went along with the whole spirit of that team. It was just part of the Dodgers persona.
There's a real charisma to that. There's a real charisma to seeing someone feel so liberated, feel so raw, and have no buffer between themselves and the outside world and their teammates. And that's a feeling that catches on.
I think Burke was very proud to be identified with that. I mean, that was one of the things that meant a lot to him because it was so symbolic of who he was, that energy and excitement.
Well, as a player, he was built like Willie Mays, and he could do anything that he really set his mind to, and he was fast becoming a very good outfielder.
He was just, a physical freak, just an unbelievable athlete.
And by 77, he had also made a hit with teammates as far as his enthusiasm and just fitting in.
He was the life of the party. We went out, he'd be the life of the dance floor. He was always making us laugh.
He was one of the most entertaining, engaging, likable people I've ever been around. 78, he was in that same role as kind of fourth outfielder. And then in mid-May, out of nowhere,
So that tells part of the story of Glenn Burke in Los Angeles. I'm going to tell the rest of it astrologically. But first, let's look at Glenn Burke's birth chart. They described him as having just a really exuberant personality, someone that's just very energetic, very entertaining. I see that reflected in the grand trine of fire he had. He's got an MC in Aries, Pluto in Leo, and Mercury here in Sagittarius. So grand trine of fire energy just kind of seems that overexcited, happy person that was just so likable and was able to break through barriers by just being so much fun. At the same time, here's some tension in this chart. He's got the sun and moon both in Scorpio, square to Pluto in Leo. So this highly pressurized scorpionic energy. It's somewhat contained. At times it bursts forth in a way that caused some problems. However, he's holding just an intense amount of Pluto energy. This is a sexual identity that is just a cauldron within this person. It's the source of his creativity. At the same time, it's the source of just the tensions that he would hold throughout a large part of his life. You've also got Mars in Capricorn, conjunct the descendant, opposite to Uranus in Cancer. This is the aspect. This is, I mean, I'm not an expert on these, but I see this as a signature of his sexuality, having Uranus conjunct his Mars. Uranus, the planet of liberation, freedom, invention, doing new things. Opposite is Mars. His Mars is just he's got a very strong Mars. It's in Capricorn. They described him as the next Willie Mays, and he was very muscular. He's able to fit in with this macho culture of baseball because he was, some people describe him as just not exactly a physical freak, but extremely muscular. He's somebody just extremely chiseled, extremely built, and also just a natural athlete. So he's got that Mars, very strong Mars. You've also got a square from both these planets, Mars and Uranus, to Saturn and Neptune in the fourth house here. So this corresponds to a few things. He did not grow up with his father present. The story goes his mother kicked him out while she was pregnant with Glenn. Don't recall if it was the issue was alcohol, but this does sort of indicate something like that going on with Neptune conjunct Saturn here. We've also got just erratic Saturnian figures, erratic paternal figures in his life. You'll see this during the course of the story. Management, the dugout managers, the front office people, and the organizations that he would try to fit in were not necessarily the most stable people that he had to deal with. So the Saturn figures in his life were unreliable. But let's go on. This is a picture that kind of represents him having created the high five on October 2nd, 1977. This isn't actually accurate. This picture has been debunked. I saw the argument that this wasn't really the actual moment. This is a moment of him giving a high five or accepting one, but this wasn't the moment that was invented. However, it does sort of represent it, and it's often described as the moment, but this isn't really it. But I do have an astrological chart that reflects the moment. Kind of wonder when something is invented, the moment that Thomas Edison got the spark about, what would actually make the light bulb work, or when did Martin Luther have his aha moment, people like that. Like to have astrological charts for that. Well, here we actually have an astrological chart for the moment that the high five was invented. And we can reflect it looking at Glenn Burke's birth chart. Here he is, his own chart with this Uranus at 18 degrees Cancer. And what was going to be the transit that he was undergoing right at that very moment was Mars conjunct that point of his Uranus. So Mars brought that energy, brought that spark to his natal Uranus at that moment that he had the inspiration to deliver the high five. The other thing was going on was an aspect to his Mercury, rather multiple aspects to his Mercury. Here is his Mercury at 15 degrees Sagittarius. So Mercury represents hands, and at that moment you've got Neptune conjunct his Mercury from 13 and some change, almost 14 Sagittarius, and it's experiencing an opposition from the moon at 13 degrees Gemini and a square from Venus at almost 13 degrees Virgo. So you've got a T-square in mutable signs going to his Mercury at 15 degrees Sagittarius. So he's holding in that very mutable energy that's probably brings that in. Somehow a combination of both these things, all the mutable energy of the day, what was happening, and he was able to channel that, plus Mars conjunct to his Uranus, and voila, the high five is born. Okay, so this is a chart of the Los Angeles Dodgers. This is the institution that would sort of be his, you could say, be his cradle for what was going on in terms of his development, but also he challenged them and they challenged him, and it's an uncomfortable relationship. But let's look at the Dodgers first and what they got going on. I've got their birth date, April 1st, 1874 in Brooklyn, but I've transplanted their chart to Los Angeles and I've rectified it. So first of all, let's give the devil their due, even though they don't play the most noble role in this drama. Let's give the devil their due. This is the team, this is the organization that helped integrate Major League Baseball. They signed Jackie Robinson. They got him to the Major League level at a time when that just wasn't being done. They did that in 1947. And the aspect that allowed them to be progressive on race matters was this. They've got Saturn in Aquarius opposite to Uranus. So I've got that Uranus energy into Saturn. Saturn represents the front office, the management, the executives, also the manager in the dugout. So we've got this going on to begin with. But in addition to that, let's look at some other features of their chart. They have a very strong opposition between a sun in Aries to the moon in Libra. So you've got the sun is a masculine planet in a masculine sign of Aries, opposite to the moon, a feminine planet in the feminine sign of Libra. So you've got a very strong opposition, a very strong polarity between masculine and feminine going on. So this would lead to issues down the road, as I'm going to explain. We've also got Cancer rising. This is a team that thought of itself as a family, had this image of themselves as a family. They were owned by the O'Malley family at the time, the second generation of ownership. And they'd like to think of Dodger Stadium as a place to bring your kids, a place to bring your family. That was their persona, that there was the Dodger family on the field and it was a place to bring your family. So they're talking about family values before that phrase was coined, a family image. What also made this family thing stronger was having the moon in the fourth house and having Jupiter in the fourth house. Jupiter in the fourth house, we're a big family, but we're a family. We're also a clean family because Jupiter is in the clean sign of Virgo. And you have this idealization of relationships going on. You've got Venus conjunct to Neptune. So the thought that this idealized image of the happy heterosexual couple, they like their players to be married. And the poster child for this was Steve Garvey, who had this perfect poster boy marriage. Of course, it did kind of get unraveled and had a very public divorce, and that played out later in the media. However, it still was part of the image. And the team, when they were in Brooklyn, before they were called the Dodgers, had actually been called the Bridegrooms once upon a time. So marriage, family, heterosexual marriage, nice, clean-cut relationship. This was part of the image that the Dodgers held to and believed in and liked to project, even if they weren't always consistent with it. So this is what Glenn Burke, a African-American gay male, would get drafted by this team. Here is the chart for when they acquired him, when they drafted the rights to have him play for their team. So here's the Dodgers chart. Here's the chart for the draft. Interesting thing that's going to happen. You've got the moon in Aries, opposite to Uranus. And this is going to challenge the Dodgers' masculine moon in Aries, because you've got a moon, feminine energy is coming at their masculine moon. You've also got a T-square going on between, put that back, a T-square going between Moon, Uranus, and Mars. So something's going to be going on here with Mars energy, Uranian energy, and the moon. So there's going to be kind of a reassessment or a resetting of energy and the challenge of Glenn Burke showing up. The Aries, Libra, Sun, Moon polarity within their chart is going to be challenged by this young man. The other fascinating transit that happens at the time they drafted him is that Jupiter is here at 4 degrees Capricorn, which is exactly conjunct their descendant. So this is going to challenge what it means to define relationship. They've got this idealization going on between Venus and Neptune in Aries, but the reality of a relationship is going to be at the descendant point. Who is your partner? Who's there? What is the nuts and bolts, the grittiness of your relationship is going to show itself there. And here, at the time they signed Glenn Burke, or the time they drafted Glenn Burke, Jupiter was going to show up on their descendant, and it's a descendant in Capricorn. So you've got your reality issues, the hard knocks of the Capricorn sign, and Jupiter's going to land there and challenge them, expand it. It's not Saturn that's challenging it. It's Jupiter. It's going to say, hey, you've got to make this bigger. You have your idealized portrait, your idealized image of what a relationship is, but we're going to show up with somebody odd, and you're going to deal with him. So here is the relationship between looking at Glenn Burke's chart versus the Dodgers chart. What's going on? It's interesting. We're looking at the axis points. He has this MC-IC axis of MC in Aries, IC in Libra. These you can pretty much superimpose on the Dodgers axis point, or their opposition between their sun in their sun in Aries and their moon in Libra. So there's going to be some kind of an echo, some kind of a challenge going on here. And then you have his descendant, the conjunction between his descendant in Capricorn and his Mars in Capricorn is right square to their Neptune and Venus. So he's going to do a challenge to their idealized relationship, their idealized image of what a relationship should be. It's going to be happening here. So at the time, the Dodgers did prefer married players. They wanted players who figured that married players would be less trouble, more stable. So here he is challenging their sense of that. So it's also going to bring up issues of what is masculine, what is feminine. Here on this, there's this relationship. I mean, the opposition between their Aries planets and their Libra planets. What is masculine? What is feminine? Glenn Burke is showing up and challenging that. He's also challenging the notion of what it is to have, how are you defining a relationship? What is a legitimate relationship? So these are two characters that are pivotal to the drama of Glenn Burke in Los Angeles. This is Tommy Lasorda Sr., who managed the team. And this is Tommy Lasorda Jr., Tommy Lasorda's son, who was gay. This is a picture I found of Tommy Lasorda Jr. on the internet. There's a few pictures of him like that. And interesting thing about Tommy Lasorda, he was gay, but his father, the Dodgers manager, consistently denied it. He would be asked about his son's sexuality, consistently denied it, almost to, can't remember if, he denied it at the very end when Tommy Lasorda Jr. would die of AIDS if he was still in denial at that point. But anyways, Tommy Lasorda Jr. would become friends with Glenn Burke. And the details of their relationship are unknown. I've read a couple books, and both of them say, well, it's somewhat sort of kept hidden whether their relationship was sexual or whether they were just friends. But whatever the case was, their friendship, their association was a major problem for Dodgers management. Even though the players really liked Glenn Burke and they didn't care that he was gay, the fact that he was friends with Tommy Lasorda Jr., the manager's son, was a major problem for Tommy Lasorda Sr. and the other Dodgers in the front office. So the way the Dodgers handled this problem was they offered Glenn Burke money, a bonus to get married. And this was what was done in Hollywood at the time. There were gay actors in Hollywood, and the studio would come up with fake marriages for them, and there would be write up in the gossip magazines that so and so was getting married, but it was a sham to protect the players from being outed. So why not do this down the road at Dodger Stadium? So Glenn Burke was offered a bonus to get married by Al Campanis, the Dodgers general manager. And Glenn Burke's response was, get married to what? Woman? So Glenn Burke was having none of it. He wasn't going to do it. But at the same time, their friendship did end up being broken apart. According to Glenn Burke, in one of the books about him, he stated that Tommy Lasorda stopped being his friend, and he suddenly had a nice new fancy apartment in West Hollywood. So he figured he was paid off by the Dodgers to stop being their friend, and that's how he paid for the apartment. So it was kind of collateral damage for what was going on. A little later that year, in 1978, after Glenn Burke refused to get married, the Dodgers decided they couldn't have him on their team anymore, and they traded him to Oakland. And the transits for the trade to Oakland are pretty interesting. So remember when Glenn Burke was acquired by the Dodgers, Jupiter was at their descendant point, 5 degrees Capricorn. Now, at the time of his trade to Oakland, it's 6 years later, Jupiter has gone 180 degrees in the zodiac. And Jupiter is now at 6 degrees, 1 minute Cancer, which is conjunct the Dodgers ascendant within a degree. So that ascendant of Cancer, Cancerizing that image of the family values, is rearing its head. It's taking the opposite point. Instead of like the descendant, we're just going to just deal with things. It's at the ascendant where now we've got an image to project of familyness as we know it. So Jupiter is at the opposite end, and they're asserting familyness. At the same time, you've got a trine going on from Sun at 25 Taurus to the Dodgers' natal fourth house Jupiter of 25 Virgo. So that kind of clean family image, the Jupiter sense of like, well, this is what we believe in. These are our values. This is our family. It's rearing its, can't say rearing it's rearing its pristine head. I won't say it's rearing its ugly head. It's rearing its pristine head. So family values is running the day right now at the time they decided to get rid of Burke. So Glenn Burke moves up north. He arrives to play for the Oakland Athletics in May of 1978. And it's kind of an interesting homecoming because the Athletics play in Oakland. Glenn Burke was born in Oakland, but he grew up a little north of that, next city over, Berkeley, California. So it's a homecoming of sorts. But let's look at the chart of the A's. So this is the chart of the Oakland Athletics. It has less of the masculine feminine issues. It doesn't contain them quite that way like the Los Angeles Dodgers chart has. In fact, it's somewhat sort of a feminine chart. You've got the sun in Libra. You've got a Libra ascendant, and you have the moon in Cancer. So the moon in this sort of mothering, cancering, oh, just want to hug you, kind of want to feed you and hug you and nourish you, cancering, Cancer moon, and the sun and ascendant in Libra. You've got a lot of Sagittarius energy going on here with Jupiter and Uranus. And you've got a Mars in Leo in the 10th house. It's kind of like a showboat team. They like gaudy colors and stuff back then. They still do. But something to know about the A's chart is they've got a Saturn opposition to Neptune. And this is made for erratic management, erratic ownership. And this is going to show itself in what would happen down the road with Glenn. So Glenn Burke's chart and the Athletics chart have an interesting relationship. His ascendant and descendant axis of 28 Cancer and 28 Capricorn are pretty much the same degrees, maybe 1 degree off of the A's MCIC axis of 27 and 28 degree Cancer and Capricorn. You've also got his Mars of 26 degrees Capricorn, which is conjunct the A's IC. So it's like he's there in the womb, he's there back home. It's like the most home point in someone's chart. But Mars and Moon, they can be compatible or they can not be. And so it's kind of difficult. You've also got Glenn Burke has this conjunction between Saturn and Neptune at 22, 23 Libra. This is exactly conjunct the A's ascendant. So there's something going on here. It's like his Saturnian, Neptunian issues of like, okay, wanting to be an idealist and wanting to make something happen. Think of like Neptune and Saturn. It's like you've got these great ideas and you're challenged to make them into something real. This is right on the A's ascendant point. So there's a challenge here to the A's, like right in their face. Get real, but at the same time believe in something. So he shows up and it's just this is the challenge to their franchise that he's giving them. It's this dose of reality, at the same time a slap of idealism. And then you've also got an erratic aspect. His MCIC axis is 75 degrees from the A's Saturn-Neptune opposition. So this isn't going to be comfortable. So what happens in Oakland? He shows up in Oakland. They know about his sexuality. The other players know about it, but they are not accepting of it. The players on the Oakland Athletics are scared to shower with him. The fans are not kind to him. He's playing the outfield, and what can happen if you're playing the outfield is like your back is turned to the stands and they can like yell things at you. They don't have to look at you. They can just yell at your back, and you're getting paid and you just sort of have to take it. But there was an incident that I read about apparently during one game. I guess that player was really giving him a hard time about his sexuality, and he turned around and he challenged the guy. He said, "I'll meet you out in the parking lot." And he did. He met him out in the parking lot, still wearing his A's uniform after the game, and he beat him up. So don't mess with Glenn Burke. So anyways, he plays the 1978 and 1979 seasons in Oakland. He doesn't play very well. I think his batting average is in the 220s. He doesn't have a whole lot to show for him. He was a highly touted prospect, but he's not given a lot of support, and he's getting injured. Things aren't going real well. So next year, 1980, Billy Martin becomes the manager of the A's, and Billy Martin is there on that polarity of the A's team between Saturn and the opposition between Saturn and Neptune. Erratic managers. Billy Martin's alcoholic, probably had some mental health issues also. He was not very kind to Glenn Burke. He took an instant dislike of him, and when meeting during spring training, he says, "Oh, I'm going to introduce to you Glenn Burke, and by the way, he's a faggot." So it didn't go well. He ends up demoting Glenn Burke to the minors. Glenn Burke gets a knee injury, and then Glenn Burke just says, "I've had it. They're not going to accept me for who I am." and he quits baseball at the age of 27. Somebody who was touted to be the next Willie Mays, expected to be a great player, was kind of spat out by Major League Baseball. So what happens next? Glenn Burke, it's the 1980s. He moves to across the bay to San Francisco's Castro district. He plays in sports leagues there. He does quite well. They have there's a story about him playing all the positions on the left side of the infield in the sports league. He plays second base and third base and shortstop. He could cover that whole side of the infield. He's pretty well known in the Castro neighborhood. He's still that Grand Shrine of Fire is still working for him. He's still a real fun guy, but he encounters bad times. He develops a cocaine addiction. He gets the HIV virus, and he experiences homelessness. He's pretty poor. He's down and out. And the A's organization finds out about this, and they help him out. They establish a fund for him at one of the local diners so he can get fed whenever he comes to there, so he won't have to be panhandling for money in the Castro neighborhood. But things don't go well. He gets hit by a car and gets a pretty bad injury, and then things just kind of spiral down from there. So Glenn Burke would die of complications due to the AIDS virus in 1995. So that part of the story does not end well. But time passes. Between 1978 and 2023, the planet Pluto makes its way through the signs of Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, and Capricorn. Neptune makes its way through Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. And Uranus gets halfway around the zodiac from Scorpio to Taurus. And the nation changes, the institution of baseball changes. And so someone like Glenn Burke, I don't necessarily know he would have done better at a different era, but things start to emerge, things start to change. In 1994, the San Francisco Giants acknowledged the LGBT community. They begin, until there's a cure, this is an annual event that they would have to raise money for AIDS research and for AIDS awareness. In 2001, the Chicago Cubs would host an event that they called Out at Wrigley. And then in 2013, the Los Angeles Dodgers, a team that wasn't comfortable with Glenn Burke and got rid of him, hosted their first Pride Night. And then 2015, Glenn's second team, the Oakland Athletics, would host their first Pride Night. And then we go to the present. By 2023, every baseball team except for the Texas Rangers has a Pride celebration. So the first Glenn Burke Pride Night was June 11th, 2021. And I look at the transits for that to see just what it looks like when someone is brought back into the organization that hadn't treated you well. I don't want to say the prodigal son returns, but more like, okay, the son that we rejected, we are now bringing back and hoping we want him back in our family. So let's look at the transits for that. We've got the transits for the Oakland Athletics. So when Glenn Burke Pride Night happened, the A's, who have a Cancer moon at 11 degrees Cancer, was having a lunar return. So heavy lunar energy, and you've also have Venus at exactly conjunct their moon at 11 degrees Cancer. So it's sort of a sense of like Venus here, like Venus, a sense of like justice. We're bringing back the scales. There's like, we want some basic fairness. Okay, we didn't treat Glenn fairly while he was here. So you've got that going on. At the same time, you've got the moon. So we're asserting our maternal qualities. It's like, okay, yes, we fed him after he left our team, or we paid to feed him, but sort of acknowledge them like we could have done more. We're better than that. We have our maternal values, our Cancer values, and we're there. We now acknowledge him. They had Glenn's family on the field. It was really kind of sweet to see. I was there. It was really nice. At the same time, you've also got the sun and Mercury in Gemini are trine to the A's sun in Libra. So some kind of a rebalancing of the scales is going on. The scales of Libra that, okay, we've got to set this back, or we want to bring this back into some sort of a balance point. We didn't treat this guy well. Be Librans and be fair about this. But also fascinating is that Pluto at 26 Capricorn was conjunct to the A's IC point of 27 Capricorn. Remember, this is exactly where Glenn Burke's Mars is here. So that is descendant point. So you've got Pluto challenging, cleaning out some of the crud from that point. The A's and the soul of the Oakland Athletics is there. I think somehow cleaning that out allowed for this new definition of their moon, the lunar energy, to bring back Glenn Burke. So it's a rebalancing and a somehow resetting the energy of what this organization meant, how they wanted to see themselves, how they wanted to feel about themselves, want to think of themselves as as the good mother, the new mother that we embrace Glenn Burke. Even though he's dead, he is still part of our family, and we're going to name an annual event after him. So Los Angeles Dodgers had their Glenn Burke Pride Night celebration on June 3rd of 2023. It's also interesting transits for the day that they officially welcome back to their family. So interestingly, Jupiter is in Aries. And remember, when they drafted Glenn Burke, when he joined the team, Jupiter was conjunct their descendant. And then when they got rid of him, Jupiter was conjunct their ascendant. Now Jupiter is an interesting balance point in Aries. Jupiter is, where is it? 4 degrees Aries and some change, pretty much square to their ascendant descendant. Maybe a little more than a degree off of an exact square. So that's rather poetic. And then Mercury is trine. Mercury is at, where's Mercury? Mercury is at 26 Taurus, trine the Dodgers, 4th house Jupiter. So still bringing in the family energy, wanting to somehow kind of acknowledge it and expand on it. But interestingly, if you go back to the chart of when Glenn Burke was cut loose by the Dodgers, when he was traded to Oakland, the sun was at that point also. The sun was at 26 Taurus. So it's kind of like hey, look at that. Look at what you did. It's like, okay, we did it. And interestingly, Venus is, where is Venus? Venus here at 7 Taurus and 34 minutes is conjunct the Dodgers Mars of 8 degrees Taurus. So there's a realignment of Mars energy here. At the same time, Mars Chiron are having a midpoint. Mars at 7 Aries and Chiron at 15 Aries. The midpoint of these is conjunct the Dodgers Aries sun. So there's like a reassessment of masculinity, a resetting of that Mars energy that's going on. Whereas in Oakland, the Glenn Burke Pride Night was more of a resetting of the Cancer energy. Here it's a resetting of the Mars energy. Like there's a redefinition of what it means to be masculine. Yeah, you can be masculine and gay at the same time. And Glenn Burke was a perfect example of that. And and the Dodgers are patting themselves on the back. We're okay with that now. Sorry, Dodger fans out there. I'm not. I mean, I respect your tribe, but I'm a Giants fan. But it's all good. Kumbaya. Anyways, so in terms of Glenn Burke, what was going on in his transits? Chiron, 15 degrees Aries, is conjunct Glenn Burke's MC of 14 degrees Aries. So interestingly, it's like there's healing on his public reputation. Here he is, the highest point of the MC being the point of your reputation, the point of your public perception. There's some sort of a healing going on with Chiron here, or somehow the Chironic energy is able to like take that on and bring them up somehow. And Pluto, at the same time, like what's happening in Oakland, Pluto's at 28 degrees Capricorn. This is conjunct Pluto's Mars, Glenn Burke's Mars and his descendant. So that descendant point and his Mars point, it is being activated by Pluto. So his definition, where he was, his intense Mars conjunct his descendant, his own relationship point right there, his own reality of relationships is being affected by Pluto conjunct his descendant. So anyways, those are the transits for Glenn Burke Bride Night in Los Angeles. Okay, so wrapping this up, this is how Glenn Burke is now currently recognized. In Oakland, we have the Glenn Burke Wellness Center. And in San Francisco's Casters District, there is a plaque on Upper Market that has Glenn Burke as an image of him. And he's also been inducted into the Baseball Reliquary Shine of the Internals. And I'm sure there'll be other ways he's going to be honored in the near future as more people come to recognize all that he did. So this concludes my talk, a high five for Glenn Burke. Next time you give a high five, think of Glenn Burke. And if you need to contact me, my name's Cesar Love. My email address is baseballastrology@outlook.com. My website is www.baseballastrology.com. And I've got a podcast that's called Love Sports Astrology. So thank you very much. I feel very honored to have participated in this presentation. And I'm just looking forward to hearing the rest of the talks and enjoying the rest of the conference. Thank you very much.